In this video, I'm going to walk you through some of the per particle animation options we have in the Gamebryo Rapid Particle Iteration tool. So first off, between the two nodes on the emitter, this is where you set anything that's going to be, all the settings for when the particle is created, like lifespan, speed, how fast it's going to rotate. On the particle system itself is where you set anything specific to that particle, and the ones we're concerned with for this is animated parameters. And we have 4 of them: color, color alpha, particle size, and rotation angle. Now there's something important to note. Because these are animated parameters, none of these will have any effect until you set a keyframe on them. Also, a lot of these kind of overlap or deal with other aspects of a particle system, so I'll go ahead and discuss how those interact. So let's go ahead and launch our Rapid Particle Viewer. Give that just a second to come up. And I've just got a real simple particle system here with little puffs of smoke shooting off. So the first one here is color, and this works just like vertex color on a normal model. It's going to take whatever color you put here and multiply it by the texture color. So if we go ahead and put red in here and then set a keyframe, it's going to go ahead and color all of them red. Now it also set that keyframe at 1. So this is something you can animate over the life of the particle. Also, because this is multiplying, if the texture you're using for your particles is pretty dark, this will be subtle, kind of hard to notice. If you're using a really bright or white texture, it'll be a lot easier to notice. So in this case, I have a white texture, so it's easy to tell. So let's go ahead and say, also, where you set your keyframes doesn't really matter. It's not going to do this in real time. It's not going to be red on keyframe 1 and then some other color on keyframe 48. It's going to take your first keyframe and your last keyframe and interpolate that over the life of the particle. So if the particle lives for 5 seconds, keyframe 1 will happen on birth, keyframe 48 will happen on death. If the particle lives for half a second, it's going to scale it to fit with that too. So let's go ahead and set a keyframe on 48 here. And also, because these are animation curves, these don't always automatically update. It'll usually catch the first one, and after that you'll have to do a refresh if you want to see the changes. So now it's evenly interpolating between red at the beginning and blue at the end. And also it's automatically updating all this, so we can go ahead and change this from purple here and have this be green. Go ahead and set a key on it and do a refresh. And now you'll notice the red when they're born, they turn green, and then they're blue by the time they die. And if for whatever reason we want to delete one of these keyframes, or we can just break the connection altogether, it'll automatically update where the end is too. So if we go from blue to red on 24 and then do a refresh, it's going to go from blue to red in the time it takes it. Lifespan is 1 second, so in 1 second. But if we set another keyframe at the end of this, it's going to rescale that so that it goes to red much faster and then green by the time it dies. Alpha works similarly. It's just like vertex alpha. At 1, your particle is going to be completely opaque. If you set it to 0, it's going to be completely transparent. So if we have it 0 at the beginning and then put it all the way to 1 at the end, our particles will slowly fade in. I'll go ahead and break both of these connections so we can see the particles a little bit better. Also, you'll notice if I just put this to 0 or 1, again, no effect until you set a keyframe. Particle size, now this is something that interacts with other elements of the particle system itself. If we go and look on the emitter, you have a size here. This is going to be the particle size in absolute terms, so in whatever your units are that you're working in. So if I'm working in centimeters, this is going to be 1/10 of a centimeter. The particle size we set over here is a multiplier. It's going to multiply that size by whatever value you have here. So if you have 1, it's going to be exactly the number you put in. If you set this to 2, and then let's go ahead and set a keyframe on it, it's going to make your particles twice as big. If you put it at 5, your particles are going to be 5 times as large. And again, you can animate this over the life of the particle. So if we have them start at 5 and then shrink down to 1/10 their normal size by the time they die, you'll notice all the particles shrink over the course of their life. We can set another keyframe at the end and have them grow back to twice their normal size. And then we have particles that are born large, shrink, and then grow back by the time they get there. So let's go ahead and break this connection and put that back at 1. And finally, rotation angle. And it's exactly what it sounds like. It's just going to rotate all of the particles. And again, this one does interact with the rotation you set here. This is what angle it comes in at, and this is how fast it spins. It's going to add these rotation values to that. So let's go ahead and set some keys and we can watch how that interacts. So I'll set a keyframe on frame 1 for 0, so they're not going to rotate at all. And then by the time they die, I want them to rotate 180 degrees. So let's do a refresh, and you can see all the particles are slowly spinning. If we put another keyframe here in the middle at 0, they're going to wait until halfway through their life before they start spinning, and then spin much faster. So, and it gets kind of difficult to see when you put this in conjunction with those. Usually you want to use one or the other, but you may want to use both for some reason. But if we set a rotation speed of 20 on here, now they're going to be spinning at 20 degrees per second until they reach halfway. And then they're also spinning at 90 degrees, or 180 degrees over the second half of their life on top of this rotation speed. So, like I said, it's a little bit difficult to see, but it is adding those rotation values together. You can kind of see a little better here that they're spinning slowly and then they start spinning faster. So those are some of the elements you can control per particle over the course or over the life of the particle.